Hello, hello, most beautiful stars. Hello, hello. Yes, it is shiny and bright in my office tonight for you and me so we can dive deep into Earth Changes by Edgar Cayce. Yes, this is an Edgar Cayce Life Skills Studies. Welcome, all you beautiful stars. I see that Seeker of Truth Shelley is in the chat. Welcome, my dear. So, beloveds, welcome. If you're new here, Stars of Morning Light, glad you came. This book here, I do want to say I had never even seen this book until I was searching out something else, and this popped up. This was copywritten in 2012. So, of course, we have to kind of stay within the guidelines of that copyright because I follow the rules. This book, though, I actually didn't start reading it until a few hours ago. I try to do that with most of the source material. So either I read it the day before or the morning of. My day got a little crazy. So I didn't even crack it open until a couple of hours ago. This book is different than other source material, as in it is question and answer. Question and answer. An answer from the Akashic. So when we're going through this, it is going to be a lot of explaining because the Akashic is just giving the answers, and they might not be the best at explaining the details to those answers. So, tonight is the introduction into it and a bit about prehistory. The first man, the first humans here, what the Akashic says. As we further go along, I am going to have to stress this is going to be a fine-tooth comb that we're going to have to go through because as I was reading earlier, I went, oh my goodness, I might have to explain almost every line because the way the Akashic delivers their message. As an Akashic reader, the Akashic will say things, but I know as a human, I got to kind of switch that up. I got to kind of make it more digestible. I got to say it in a way that we comprehend. None of this is that way. None of that written in there because they didn't know. It is verbatim. Verbatim. That says it in the intro to this, that these are verbatim. So buckle in, folks, because this is going to be a ride that is going to be very interesting. Which I'm going to enjoy, of course. Yes, thank you, Shelly. Shelly just said this is going to be interesting for sure. So, the intro is really, of course, telling the world who Edgar is. So, if you need to know who Edgar Cayce is, the playlist is in the description. We're still going through his biography. We're probably going to do that next round because it's been a while, right? And I really love retelling and examining his biography more so than a quick little snippet of the sleeping prophet. I enjoy putting humanity back into this most beautiful, rare human that came to serve. So a lot of the foreword, of course, is who is Edgar Cayce. But I want to highlight just a few different things that were said because you can always go back to the playlist that is in the description and learn who he is. Oh, and for those who have been here for a while, I want to tell you all, I most likely, it's going to be a ways off, I most likely am going to be traveling to Hopkinsville, Kentucky this coming March. So March of 2026. I have to go up to Illinois to marry a beloved couple. I also do that. I do weddings and I do very interesting weddings if you're in if you need that. If you need that, I can do all sorts of ancient and unknown things to make that very binding. um, I have to go up to Illinois, and on the way, I'm going to go to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, where Edgar was born and raised, and he's buried there. So I will get footage definitely for everybody. It's going to be a treat for me. I'm looking forward to it. So in this forward, I'm not going to read all of it like I said because it's mostly who is Edgar, but I'll read a little bit. Although the vast majority of Cayce material deals with health and every manner of illness, countless topics were explored by Cayce's psychic talent. Dreams, philosophy, intuition, business advice, the Bible, education, child raising, ancient civilizations, personal spirituality, improving human relationships, and much more. And that is true, folks. After they kind of figured out that Cayce could talk about everything, not just health, not just illnesses, it became that. It became, let's ask him about everything. In fact, during Cayce's lifetime, he discussed an amazing 10,000 different subjects. Subjects, not just reading, subjects, right? So, this, though, um, today, the Cayce organizations continue the legacy begun by Edgar Cayce with an undergrinding mission to help people change their lives for the better, physically, mentally, and spiritually, through the ideas in Edgar Cayce materials. So this book here, because I held it up and I wanted to read that because we're not going to be afraid, right? We're going to actually take what the Akashic gave Edgar and we're going to work through it and we're going to talk about it because we're here, right? This is 100 years forward. In this volume, Edgar Cayce's readings on Earth changes fall into 5 categories. Prehistory, like ancient times, but not even in our context of ancient times, just so you know. So that's 1, prehistory. Number 2, the 12th century, i.e., economical, political, social, global, geology, all of it. Oh, I'm sorry. It says the 20th century. I'm sorry. That was me. We should go to the 12th century too. The 20th century. Number 3, the future. Number 4, inaccurate or misinterpreted or partially wrong readings. Number 5. Okay. Number 5. Wow. Miscalculous readings on topics such as vibrations of nations, the density of the collective consciousness as human family, what we are attempting to learn as children of one creator, and ultimately the nature of world affairs. So we have the one that is prehistory. Then we go into the 20th century. So that's the 19, right? Any of us that were born in the 1900s, that was the 20th century. We are in the 21st century, hence 100 years forward. Then into future. So we are in the future from when all these were recorded. We are in that future. And then I do like the part of the misinterpreted readings and partially wrong readings. Like there's a whole section in this foreword that Edgar explained a dream that he had, a personal dream of his that then people out there started interpreting in their own way of trying to say, because in the dream, Edgar woke up. This was after a whole bunch of stuff happened in his life. Edgar, in this dream, is standing on what he said was the coast of Nebraska, and some other stuff happened in the dream. Oh my goodness, folks. People latched on to him revealing a personal dream that, oh, Nebraska is going to have the coast of the Pacific now. And so when we get into that section, everybody, there's going to have to be a lot of clarifying. And this happens all the time. It happens all the time. Often, even with myself as a reader, as a messenger, people hear what they want to hear. Like always, I am constantly saying, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Right? Because they're taking it in with their own perception, their own interpretations, all yada yada, that we will probably dive very deep into that. Because when you're with a reader, it's not up for interpretation. Their words are their words. If it's definitely coming from the Akashic, their words are their words. So when we get into that, yeah, big time. And then the fifth is all about how humanity, like the future of our collective consciousness, attempting to learn as children of the one creator, ultimately the nature of world affairs. So all of these sections we're going to be diving into. I will continue. Good to see Lori. Hi, darling. Good to see you, my dear. And so everyone knows, if you're new here, I am live. And so I do try to say hello to those who come in the chat. I try to communicate as best as I can with everyone who comes in. At least say a hiya. Yeah. So I hope you're doing well, Miss Lori. Listen to this, folks. We're still like in the foreword, pretty much, as in he gave many examples. He gave many examples as to, especially the misinterpretation aspect. He gave examples as to like the geology aspect, because when we get into this prehistory stuff, yeah, he starts talking about how the Nile River, which was not what it was called at the time, was dumping into the Atlantic. Like we're about to go into that. So in the foreword, he's kind of trying to prepare and prep us for, hey, you're going to read some stuff. You're going to read some stuff. Now, what I do want to say, for those who really, truly want to study Edgar, this is a great book to have. The Edgar Cayce companion book, right? Because when you get into readings, they're all numbered, they're all marked, they're all categorized. So let's say you read something in one material, and this is why this might take us a while. You read something in one material. It is always good to go to the companion to see if there's more detail, to see if there's more stuff going on. That's for those who truly want to kind of dive deeper into Edgar Cayce. And if not, that's what I'm here for. So I'm happy you're here. Oh, good to see you, Boron Doja. Good to see you, my dear. So listen to this, though, beloveds. We're still in the foreword, but I really, man, when I read this, I almost started crying. Oh, I might cry now. Who knows? Because many of those here know that I did start the Sun series, and I am now calculating in my mind that that Sun series might, I don't know, go until I can't talk no more. The Sun series. So please listen to this. Elsewhere, The readings suggest that whenever war, strife, and turmoil occur in the affairs of humankind, sunspots occur as a natural consequence. Yeah, I might cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to read that again, though. So, the beloveds who have been here with me for a while, who know why I'm starting the series, and yes, the last hangout with Courtney, I was very under the influence, more so than normal, so I don't believe I was responding as best as I should or could, or tracking my words as greatly. And somebody asked about sunbursts. I did not answer in full in that time. That I did know I controlled a bit. Don't reveal all in this moment because it is going to be in the Sun series, but I like this. I do want to kind of have everybody know on for a while. And this is the reason. I'm going to read it again. Where else or elsewhere, the readings suggest that whenever war, strife, and turmoil occurs in the affairs of mankind, so when it's present, when it occurs amongst us, and listen, war, strife, turmoil, individually and collectively, comma, sunspots occur as a natural consequence. On one occasion, Casey went so far as to state that the phenomenon of sunspots, what we would also call bursts in today's world, are connected to instability and turmoil upon the planet Earth itself. And see, it gives a number, so we can go into it if we choose. This is why I'm live. I can look up that number because I have the companion book. Maybe we'll do that during the Sun series. In other words, instability among people leads to instability upon the planet and throughout the universe. I know all my beloved, beautiful stars here know exactly how much that hit. One of the most interesting dynamics of people working together is that they can rise the vibration of energy and thought to a higher level. Simply stated, this means that the physical earth changes seen decades ago by Edgar Cayce could now be changes that will occur on a different level. I went there for that little last bit because when we get into that, because I'm going to read the last paragraph of the foreword. We are 100 years later. I have now made an entire series that I'm going to dedicate to talking about the sun. It just said, as humans working together, we can change the vibration of the earth, of the thoughts, of everything. That maybe what Casey said no longer has to apply, or to not to the degree of things that were discussed. So I will say I was with the patrons on Sunday, and one of them asked, what did Edgar say about the pole shifts and what is going on? And here's the reality. Edgar talked about the pole shifts. Edgar clearly talked about the sun. Edgar talks about a lot of things, 10,000 different topics. What he will always emphasize is the immense power that humans have. So nothing is written in stone. Nothing has ever been written in stone. In the end, the Edgar Cayce readings on Earth changes are really about the fact that a new world is being born. The Earth changes we experience, whether geological, economical, global, political, etc., provide an opportunity to understand our relationship with one another and get our priorities back in focus. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Perhaps the time has come to look at this material in a new light. The changing events in our world and in our lives are to enable us to remember why we are here. Our planet is in the midst of upheavals that will enable individuals everywhere to eventually gain this realization. With God as our creator, we are all part of the same family. That understanding and experience is our collective destiny. We don't want to fool ourselves. The geological conditions of the planet make some earth changes inevitable. In other words, there will continue to be earthquakes. But the purpose of the changes we are experiencing is not for the earth changes themselves, but simply to step forward, reawakening to our joint destiny as spiritual beings manifesting in the earth. So sometimes maybe things have to happen for us to realize we're actually doing this together. Like I hate saying this to people that I know is a hard time. No, actually I don't hate saying it. That was the wrong term to use. For me, what we just went through 5 years ago, 2020, we were all there, seemed to go on forever. 2020 pandemic. For me, I wasn't really scared. I was actually kind of excited. And I know that sounds crazy. That's why I hate saying it, because I sound like a cuckoo, I sound a little crazy. I was excited because for me in my lifetime, everything, especially for here in the States, because I grew up in America, everything was on the TV over there and down there and over there. Everything we knew, we saw, we grew up with the news, we grew up watching all the bombs, we grew up watching all this stuff, but it was still disconnected until 2020. Until that came from and stretched way over everything, land and sea, to remind everyone we are one family. We are one humanity. We are one. So even though I might sound crazy to say it, I was actually kind of excited because for me, I see how we're all one. I know the spider webs of this place. It's amazing the entanglement of all humanity. But I also know that others don't. And that was the one time in more recent history that something came through that affected everyone on such a scale that we could remember we're all one family. We're all one human. We're all one in this planet together. So sometimes things do need to happen. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that anything's written in stone. I'm saying that I would give anything for people to remember that aspect opposed to the division, right? Opposed to any of that. And it's interesting that I bring that up because we're fixing to go into the changes in prehistory. And so I'm going to hold this up. This is the book, okay? Changes in prehistory. As you can see, this is very much just question and answer. Question and answer. So, as I said at the beginning, I am going to have to do a lot of explaining some of this as we go further along. And I know the beloved's here, all the beautiful stars. I see Robert came in. Good to see you, sir. Um, I know that the beautiful stars here understand that we're all one family. But I also understand and know that our individual lives can be very difficult. Can be very difficult, and we're pretty much forced into focusing on ourselves. I say go for it. Focus on yourself. Focus on yourself and healing and developing more understanding in the experiences. Because the more you can do that, then you participate more with the humanity family. And then when that starts happening, well, then that's when more change occurs, right? But it does start with self. So, changes in prehistory. Robert, you're going to love this, buddy. Okay, so they give a little, it says background. Reading regarding the appearance of humankind in Earth, the various races, and changes in the Earth's surface. So, our land masses. I'm gonna do a. Uh, I have to tell people. So when we read this, the Akashic is going to refer to humans as yellow, red, black, white. The Akashic in no, absolutely zero, zero, zero way is in any form of judgment or racism. The Akashic Records has zero judgment. Remember and know if this is your first time, the Akashic refers to all of you as actually entities. It refers to me as an entity. It refers to, you should hear, they have a term for what we call maybe God or source, and then they have a term for who's ruling. They actually call it ruler of this earth. I mean, they go into it, guys. They refer to things very, very different than we do. Very, very different. So, of course, when we're talking about the first humans, yeah, they refer to all of us as entities. They refer to everything as an entity. An alien's an entity. We're an entity. The earth is actually an entity to them. They're everything's an entity of some sort. A breathing being, right? A living being. But how this is going to sound as I read here online is going to sound pretty offensive. That is absolutely nothing that the Akashic is thinking, or that they don't think. That's not, they have no form of judgment. It just is, right? But I have to put that out there. I have to put that out there because they are going to refer to different races as colors. Okay? Oh, man. Oh, jeez. So, this reading is in regards to the appearance, meaning when did they show up, the first humans, the appearance of humankind, humans, in the earth, which is interesting. It doesn't say on the earth, it says in the earth, the various races and changes in the earth's surface. So this reading is 364-13 from November 17th, 1932. The question: Are the places designated for the beginning of the 5 races correct? 5 different races. We're all one family. We're all one family. But at the very beginning, there were still 5 different groups. Answer. So they're asking the locations of where these humans boop, because at some point they're going to say how the humans were projected. The 5 different races, like where they came from and where they settled, is that accurate? Answer. As we find, these are changed in that those in the Gapi, the yellow, the white, rather in the Carpathians than India, though this is the change to which they are made. The red, of course, in the Atlantean and in the America, the brown in the Aden or Adine, the black in the plain and the Sudan or in Africa. Bear with me, folks. Where was the Carpathian region? This is the answer. Arat. So that's Aarat. Where is this location? Is it on the map today? Southern part of Europe and Russia and Persia and that land. Caucasian Mountains. Question. Why was the number 5 selected for the projection of 5 races? They knew to ask. What I do adore about this book is they knew how to ask the questions correctly to the Akashic. Over the years of working with Edgar, people learned how the Akashic needed questions asked. Whenever I have to do a reading for people, what I'm doing is I am taking your question and I have to change how it's delivered. It's the same answer, it's the same thing, but we have such common speech, and the Akashic is very, very precise. So when they ask, why was the number 5 selected for the projection of 5 races? That word projection is accurate. Answer. This, as we find, is that element which represents man in his physical form and the attributes to which he may become conscious form and the element or spiritual to the physical consciousness. I'm going to read that again. This we find, so we find is the Akashic speaking. This we find is that element which represents man, so like that energy that represents man in his physical form, the meat suits, and the attributes, all the things that make us humanity, make us human, make us, right, unique, and the attributes to which he may become conscious form, and that form is in italics, and attributes to which he may become conscious form, the elemental or spiritual to the physical consciousness. So some of you have been with me for a while. Some of you have been with me for a while. Man as an energy being, right? 5 races were created. 5 races were created. that represents that energy in a physical form. The attributes to which, so all the stuff that makes us a society, a civilization, us humans, the attributes to which he may become, he may progress over time, development over time, evolution over time. He may, by choice, it's up to him, it's up to us, he may become conscious form, the elemental, he may become conscious from the elemental, from the spiritual, and the physical consciousness. Question. Did the appearance of what became the five races occur simultaneously? So, did humans appear foop, simultaneously? Foop. Because we just talked about a little bit of the different regions, and they're going to go into the regions. Did humans just foop there? Foop. Occurred at once. That was the answer. All these five different black, white, we got brown, we got red, we got yellow. Ain't it crazy that we still, I think, use that? Ain't it crazy? We still use that? Did the appearance of what became the five races occur simultaneous? Boop. There you are. Boop. You were projected. Boop. There's the five. Question. Describe the Earth's surface at the period of the appearance of the five projections. I'm going to read that question again for everybody. Describe the Earth's surface. So, like landmass, what was going on? What the Earth looked like at the period, so the time period, at whenever this happened, of the appearance, because it all happened simultaneously. Boop. There's some humans. Boop. Period of appearance of the five projections. You wonder what's projecting. And it's so funny because we live in this world today when this was recorded. What date was that? November 17th of 1932. And people think that the whole concept of the Matrix is a new thing? Crazy. Answer. This has been given, meaning it was given at an earlier date. Somebody else, that happens a lot with the Akashic. If someone has asked similar questions or even the same question because they're searching for the answer they want, the Akashic will always say first that we've already given the answer. We've already given it. Like, they do not like to repeat themselves. I will tell you that. That might be where I get it from. I don't really like repeating myself, but I know that's needed, so I work with everybody. But they don't. They do not like it, I will tell you. So, when an answer starts with, "This has been given," that is them going, "We've already answered this." It's not our fault that you're not comprehending. It's not our fault that your history has been completely destroyed. In the first, or that known as the beginning, or in the Caucasian and Carpathian, or the Garden of Eden, in that land, which lies now much in the desert, yet much in mountain and much in the rolling lands there. Let me keep reading, folks. The extreme northern portions were then the southern portions, or the polar regions were then turned to where they occupied more of the tropical and semi-tropical regions. Hence, it would be hard to discern or disseminate the change. The Nile entered into the Atlantic Ocean. What is now the Sahara was an inhabitable land and very fertile. What is now the central portion of this country, talking about the United States, America, what is now the central portion of this country, or the Mississippi Basin, was then all in the ocean. Only the plateau was seen, was known of, the plateaus, or the regions that are now portions of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, formed the greater part of what we know as the United States. That along the Atlantic board formed the outer portion then, or the lowlands of Atlantis. The Aden, or the Pacific coast of South America, occupied then the extreme western portion of Lemuria. The Urals, I never pronounced that right, and the northern regions of Same were turned into tropical land. The desert in the Mongolian land was then a fertile portion. This may enable you to form some concept of status of Earth's representations at that time. The oceans were then turned about. They no longer bear their names. Yet from whence obtained they their names? Question mark. What is the legend even as to their names? Don't you love that's how they ended that? Give me a pause, folks. So, no, Bojan said the Andes. Maybe. So let me break this down for a moment. So first of all, they said they've already talked about this, which they have, and we have other material. This is a little bit talked in the Millennium and in the Atlantis book, which is on my bookshelf. I'm also going to read again from this for a moment. Okay, the Sage of the Aryan Race. So give me just a moment. First of all, they said, in the first, what we call the beginning. That is two very different words. Two very different words. There's a first. We tend to call it the beginning. And it starts saying, they start talking about how what we think was what we call, because they already said it, the Carpathian or the Garden of Eden in that land, which lies now much in the desert, yet much in mountains and much in rolling highlands there. Give me one sec. Oh, hold on. Let me keep reading. The extreme northern portions, where then the southern portions or the polar regions were then turned to where they occupied more of the tropical and semi-tropical regions. I'm going to read from this in just a moment because we've read this before. The Sage of the Aryan Race we've started it with the Sun series. We're going to go back. That Sun series is going to be a series. Now you're going to be able to bounce around and get all sorts of information. But this is basically the backstory. The backstory, I'm holding the book up, okay? To anyone who wants to learn about Zoroasterism. Zoroasterism. Whew. I've had a lot of words lately, folks. This is his backstory. That master. Which is, I love him. I actually really do. He will be a part of our Sun series because Zoroaster actually tried to teach people. He had a vision one day of beings coming through the sun, and that the sun was the way out and the way in. And what we're going to be learning is the sun should really be our main focus. And that's where everybody's coming up with this SON, when even that SON was telling us, as we know in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, even in some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, to focus on the SUN. So let me read this, though, because this might make some sense to you. At this time, the world was almost uninhabited, except for a few savage tribes in Africa and Asia, and the earth lay barren. It was a breeding place of dangerous animals and untamed jungle lands and deserts where no human could survive. But yet, amazingly, there was one place on earth that was peopled. The very top of the world, the North Arctic region, was populated by a race of people who proudly called themselves the Aryans. By this they meant simply the pure and the noble ones. They formed the first civilized nation in the history of the world. The Arctic region in those days was not icy and cold as it is now. It was warmer, and the Aryans lived there very comfortably. And as we read this before, a whole lot of stuff happened and they moved down. Now, I will tell you, let's go back to Edgar, they moved in to what is now referred to more so as like the Persian area, right? They moved into there. Same as, and they had to move past what we are calling the Caucasian, the white ones that were in the lots of words, folks, Carpathian area. So remember, they were saying that originally was what we would call, Europe, southern Russia, in that region there, headed into Persia. They said Persia. These beloved beings went into Persia, right? The Aryan nation, they went into Persia. And special note, a lot of others kept going further. But this is why the pole shift, as we know, as it's said, the oceans were then turned about. They no longer bear their names. So at this prehistoric time, 5 projected races in different areas. But why are we even trying to understand that when they are telling us ancient history of Zoroaster tells us, Edgar Cayce and the Akashic tells us that the poles shift, the polar regions, The polar regions were then turned to where they occupied more of the tropical and semi-tropical regions. Hence, it would be hard to discern or disseminate the change. Like, we can't even comprehend it because all of these lands are different. And for us here in the States, well, shit, there was only Arizona, Utah, and what they say, Nevada? Something like that. Arizona, Utah. What did it say? Like, come on, there wasn't even an area for us, yet a very small. But it also said that we were somewhat of attached to what was ever going on with the Atlantis thing. So I'm going to keep going. I wanted to read that because there's going to be more. We're going to read the next little portion and there's going to be some more. Where are we at with time? Ooh, or maybe we'll have to do it next time, folks. Are the following, this is a question, are the following the correct places? Atlantean, the red. Atlantean and America are the red race. Atlantean and America, America, right, are the red race. What we call indigenous. Why the indigenous lived the way they did, right? They would be the ones that still lived as Atlantean originally started out before it got corrupted. Upper Africa for black. Answer. Or what would be known now as more western portion of Upper Egypt for black. You see, with the changes, when there came the uprisings in Atlantean land and the journey southward, with the turning of the axis, the white and yellow races came more into that portion of Egypt, India, Persia, and Arabia. So I'm bringing you back to the Aryan Zoroaster. So they asked, are we accurate with thinking that Upper Africa is for black folk? Right? That's what these people in 1932 are asking. And they said, well, not really. Not in your context. Not in the Africa that you were picturing in your mind. Because why? What would be known now, meaning what your picture Africa, everybody in your mind right now. Okay, thank you. What would be known now as the more western portion of Upper Egypt for the black? So the upper portion of Egypt is actually where the black race ended up being able to sustain itself more so. Because, and they say, you see, with the changes, when there came an uprising in the Atlantean land, please take note of that. I'm This is why, beloveds, if you've been with me a while, I'm always saying, why are people so obsessed with Atlantis? It didn't end well because it wasn't going well. So why are we so obsessed with figuring that one out? Um, it didn't go well. The uprising in Atlantean land and the journey southward, like the Aryan civilization that were in the North Pole, the North region, the North axis, right? The polar regions, they were living there when it was beautiful, and lovely. But then But then there were uprisings in Atlantis. People were having to travel southward with the turning of the axis, pole shift. The white and yellow races, so those in southern Russia. So this is what happened, folks. The Aryans, well, a whole bunch of stuff happened and they have their own story, but it's all the same jazz, right? Stuff started happening, turning of the axis, corruption started entering their area based on what was going on with that uprising in Atlantis. Their whole world started shifting. And so their beautiful, lush, tropical heaven in a way, I mean, it was almost perfect in this area. Outside of that, there are dangerous, dangerous animals. A lot of the following readings that we're not going to get into tonight was all about how did humans handle, how did they learn to handle really dangerous animals. Dinosaurs, maybe? Who knows? Right? We're finding more proof now that humans were walking amongst the dinosaurs. So, the next sections are about that. Fascinating. So, they're moving on down. As they are coming down, they are also dealing with walking past the Caucasians that are in, think of southern Russia, Europe, parts of Persia, the upper part, the Germanic areas, right? All of those kind of areas. Definitely probably through France. Woohoo, France. What we consider today. They're moving through that to get down to further Persia areas. The and that was difficult. That was very difficult for them. It's not like they weren't warring. It's not like they just got to walk through peacefully. It was difficult. And they all were going through, all the humans were going through this turning of the axis. The turning of the axis. So the white, the Caucasians that were in that area, seeing now the Aryans coming down. Whoa, what's going on? Clearly stuff is happening. They and the yellow race came more into the portion of Egypt because remember, Egypt was supposed to be like the new Atlantis, right? Came into the portion of Egypt, India, Persia, and Arabia. So all of a sudden, the earth starts turning on its axis, the oceans flipped, things are happening, people are migrating. At the same time, there's an uprising in Atlantis that triggered almost instantaneously, we gotta go. Not even if there's any uprising happening around them, but because it affected the earth so greatly, now there's this great migration. And the poles, how would I say, dramatically flipped on its axis. Beloveds, they answered that no, the upper part of Egypt is more where the black race were more together uh, because understand all of this migration. And as they start listing the causes, what came first, when there came the uprisings, plural, in the Atlantean land. That came first. Going back to, and the sun react, will always react. It's our consequence. Hmm, hmm. Fascinating, right? I know all the beautiful beings here are very intelligent. and can read between the lines. I want to go real quick to when they said the oceans were then turned about. They no longer bared their names, meaning devastation, the flood, however you want to put it, catastrophic event, which started with an Atlantean uprising, which was the red race that was Atlantean and American. That is America, North and South. We should really be working together. Really be working together. That's a prophecy that can happen. It would be beautiful. When the eagle and the condor, opposed to fighting, they actually come together and soar. That can happen. That's a potential. But I'm just really emphasizing this. Of course I am. Because the sun will have us living out the consequences. Ooh, that SUN. Gosh. When the oceans no longer bared their names, because there was no where what ocean? It's all just a bunch of water now, flood. Yet from whence obtained they their names? What is the legend even as to their names? So when the Akashic speaks like that, they're trying to say what we know of our ocean. We know of it because this happened. We have these names for these oceans because names are actually very important in the Akashic, by the way. It is the identifying marker to that energy because all is energy. So names are actually very important. So when we say the Atlantic, when we say the Dead Sea, when we say the Pacific, when we say all of these, when we start being able to put a name on these big oceans, the only reason we can do that is because they were seeded in the first place and new land started popping up. And that is the next section in a way. All this new stuff was happening, people having to migrate, all this stuff happening. Hence, we then now have whole new names as if all of that is kind of stricken from the record. Hence, why most people in today's world are still obsessed about this mystery place called Atlantis because it was stricken from the record. It was, oh, this first round, this first. Yeah, this didn't go that well. This didn't go that well. And I'm gonna tell you, beloveds, there's been multiple rounds of different things happening, and it is going to be stated in here. So, here's the beauty about that, though. We have the names now. We have those names now of the Atlantic, the Pacific, all these beautiful ocean waters, right? All this beautiful water. We have them now. What is the legend, even, as to their names? Question mark. That is the Akashic, and I think those people might have not have fully understood that at that time, not even Cayce in 1932. I can guarantee you he didn't really get what they were saying. They're saying, how are you going to tell a story? What is the legend, even? What is a legend, even, other than its name? What are we going to lose our names? Are we going to lose it as to their names? Is it going to be stricken from the record? I don't know. 5th, 6th, 8th time. That's what they were doing. But I don't think the people that recorded that at that time in 1932 understood that they were leaving everybody with a big old question. They're saying, hey, you created these oceans that you know of now. So, what is a legend? You created all of this. So, I'm going to leave you on that note. That's where I'm going to leave this. That we can. We can change all this. We can change all that is projected. You beautiful projected humans. All there is nothing's written in stone. And so the next one we will be getting into a reading regarding the appearance of humankind in the earth and the beginning of the first attempts to understand humankind's relationship to the Creator. And from there, we're going to actually go into. Oh, I hit the wrong. After that, we're going to go into how did the humans learn to handle these extremely dangerous beasts of the land? How did we learn this shit? How did we learn what to handle? And I will tell you, in some of this, they do talk about cosmic rays, and they say what you refer to as the death ray. So we'll get into it, everybody. I want to talk about the future always and how we can change the future. But I'm happy that they started with the prehistory, because when we can acknowledge a whole lot of stuff happened, a whole lot of stuff that we can control, that we can do, that we have power to manifest, as we learned at the very beginning of this, then we can move into, well, then what's the future hold? Can we shift it? Can we change it? What can we do about it? What's going on? So this has been very enlightening for, I hope, a lot of us. And those who have been around, thank you, beloved stars. Those who are new, I am Courtney, host of Stars of the Morning Light. Please give this a thumbs up. Send it out to those that you think can resonate. And know that even though I might not say everything, I do know what I do know what I'm talking about. And I do have my reasons as to why I start things like the Sun series. Why every time people want to talk about Atlantis, I'm like, screw Atlantis. So, I love you all very much so. It's not that we have to go backwards to go forwards, but our backwards, we don't even know. So, we'll talk about it a bit. I'll see you guys later. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Lori, Shelly, Michelle, everybody, Robert. I appreciate you so very much. And until next time, folks, keep shining, stars. Bye, guys.